Hello and welcome to The Sexually Satisfied Woman. I am your host, Eva Blake, and in this interview series, I'm talking to a variety of fantastic experts who are uniquely qualified to discuss some of the most common challenges that women face in our sexuality. And over the course of this series, we're going to offer some real practices to boost your confidence, ditch the shame, and create truly passionate and authentic intimacy so that you can have the sexual satisfaction that you desire, especially in these really uncertain times. So today I have the privilege to introduce Dr. Lexx Brown James. She is a marriage and family therapist, a certified sex educator, a best-selling author, a keynote speaker, a curriculum designer, and a grand rounds lecturer. So wow, that's a lot. She's also the CEO of the Institute for Intimacy and Sexuality, and she works to support healing in couples, families, and individuals. She believes that healing does happen, and as a couples clinician, she works to take care of the relationship between lovers versus the ego of lovers. I hope we dive into that. And she merges education and therapy using her skill set, training professionals within and outside of human sexuality. In professional development, Dr. Lexx works to support organizations in decentralizing harmful, oppressive practices with their clientele, and in classrooms and in training environments. She uses experiential pedagogy coupled with effective-based learning to challenge attitudes and support learners and being able to apply knowledge and skills. So wow, we're going to have a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much, Dr. Lexx. It's fantastic to have you here.
Wow, that is a mouthful. I'm going to have to, I don't know, we're going to have to just tweak that a little bit. So
You're
much
doing
to
a
say
lot.
that.
You're doing a lot.
I do a lot, and I love what I do, and it brings me so much pleasure. So I get to help others get to pleasure and perpetuate and maintain and build intimacy, right? That is one of the great things I get to do.
Yes. So we're in a really unprecedented time in the world, right? I mean, we're facing a huge monumental election, right? We're recording this before the election, a sustained national uprising in support of Black Lives Matter and against police brutality. And then there's this real global pandemic, right? That's keeping much of the population at home or disconnected from the people that they usually have intimate relationships with, right? So in the context of all that, what are you hearing from couples right now? What are the big struggles that couples are facing in their intimate life these days under these pretty huge circumstances?
So that is the quintessential question. I am getting flooded, as well as with my other colleagues. All of us, none of us have any room to take on any more new people. So by the time this comes out, right, you might have to come on a wait list if you live in Missouri and you want to become a client of mine, because we're swamped. Not only the time of year, right? So most people come back to therapy in the fall. Typically, we would say it's because you're going to be locked indoors more, with family members more. And, COVID kind of took care of that back in March. So we saw a flooding of people saying, I need help. I need resources. Somebody else outside of my family or my friend circle, I need help. I need a professional. And my couples, I'm seeing a huge rededication to relationship. So when I say that, I mean that folks have been existing in couplehood in a committed level. And just a committed level, which in a theoretical model, you don't really need to know a whole bunch about. Some people label as empty love, right? So we've just decided to stay together because we're together. We don't really have a friendship connection anymore because we're both working 60, 70, 80 hours because capitalism blows in America. And we're not really connecting on a deeper level. Maybe we have dinner together, or we have kids together, or it financially behooves us to be together. So we're just here and we're committed, or we're married, and that is our religious idea that we do not get divorced, and so we just exist. And we don't have passion as much. So I'm seeing people that are like, we're committed to our relationship, and now we want to make our relationship different. We want to start to define it for ourselves. We want to fall back in love with each other, or we want to have better sex. So we want to be able to connect to one another because I'm not sure we're doing it right, and I'm not really sure what I'm interested in anymore. And it's like, okay, that we can explore. And other people are just really building a friendship. They're trying to figure out how to decrease the conflict that they've been having from literally being in the house with one another, being in small confined spaces, 1-bedroom apartments, hey New Yorkers, right? And trying to figure out how they're going to like keep existing with one another while working from home, while parenting from home, while trying to homeschool and do all these things, but still stay connected to their lovers. And they have really started to come back into therapy and saying, we need to figure this out because we argued over how to take out the trash 2 days ago, right? Just taking out the trash, a simple thing, a simple task for most folks. It's even that was getting under my nerves. I was folding towels and I was just angrily folding towels. And I realized we might need some help with this. So those are the folks that we're seeing starting to come back in and wanting to have some support, some help. And for me, as a marriage and family therapist, my job is always to take care of the relationship between people. I don't side with one person or the other, or the other, or the other when we're talking about consensual non-monogamy or polyamory units. My job is to take care of the relationship between people. That's what I'm here to protect. That's what I'm here to nurture. That's what I'm here to help foster and to give you all the skills to take care of it yourselves too.
Beautiful. Yes, I love that. I love that you're seeing an influx of people who are recognizing that because we're spending so much time together, that there are these blind spots or these holes or these missing pieces. And now we want to address the missing pieces, right? Which is really great. It's rather, I think that's wonderful, more wonderful, I think, maybe than being overwhelmed by people who are feeling like, wow, this is a big crisis and I just really don't know how to deal with any of it. Right. So,
right.
I'm
glad I get to house the network instead of like, oh my gosh, I'm scared to go outside, right? Because part of me is like, well, that's very real. I understand why you'd be scared to go out. Me too. There are parts like I have 2 small children, so I don't want to be on a playground when there's 12 kids out there that we have no idea who these kids are, and it's really hard. I'm like, we gotta go. We have on masks, we wash our hands, and I'm like, no, that doesn't feel safe. When there's 2 of us, maybe 4 of us, that feels fine. So I love being able to do this work. I also feel very equipped and skilled to do this work versus handling the catastrophe that's out there now.
Right. There's a lot of it going on, right? So now that people, they're coming to you and they're able to name the stresses, like, I lost my cool. My partner was taking out the garbage and I was like, rage folding the laundry. Right. So what does it look like for a couple to go from that kind of stress into more successful relating with each other and to have more successful intimacy, right? And here I just want to say that for me, intimacy is really about closeness, connection, like being on the same page with each other, feeling like I got your back, you got my back, I know that you have my back, right? I'm not specifically talking about like sex or, sex play in that way, but more of that underlying like emotional feeling of connection, but also like that stability. So how do we go from, ooh, with the trash to like, yes.
It is such a bumpy road. I wish I could tell you it's like this smooth ride where you just learn how to like learn each other's dance and love language. And it's not. It is messy. It is hard. It is annoying. And you're just like, oh. And also it can be some self-realization of like, that's what my mama did. I didn't mean to. I told myself I wasn't going to be like my parents, or I wasn't going to be like, TT and them, whoever it is. And so it is this kind of like, oh, snap, this is my mess. And this is how my mess is affecting you. How do I clean up my own mess, right? Because it's not your partner, it's not your lover's job to take care of your mess.
Right.
It is your lover's job to be like, hey, I see your mess. It's getting on me. And this is the effect it's having on me. And how can I help you with this if you want help?
Yeah.
Big therapeutic word we have is differentiation. It's like one of my favorite things.
Me too.
Ability to hold on to yourself in the midst of everybody else's mess. But for couples, differentiation feels really unsafe, especially if we've been in this kind of romanticized traditional monogamy idea of you're one and all and you should be each other's everything and you should always be together. And we call this enmeshment. When couples are like this, my grandmother calls it when you gain your happy weight, because all you do is like eat and sit on the couch and watch movies together or like whatever. It's like you hang up, no, you hang up, or let's go out to eat and let's just lay around. And that's the bubble that people are in. This is not awesomely healthy, right? You're really stuck on each other. You don't have room for other people or other emotionalities, and you share a lot of the same energy. It just gets toiled. Well, what did you do today? You were there. You were there all day. We were together all day. We talked all day. So you know exactly what I did, right? And then we have couples that are like this. And these are couples, and you might have seen them in like people's parents who live in separate rooms but are still together. They have no idea what's going on in each other's lives. They kind of just exist separately. People might think that they're single when they're out. And it's like, well, no, like, you know, we're committed. That empty love, right? Like, yeah, we're together. We just kind of exist on our own. What we like is for couples to be here or like somewhere, right? Yeah, everybody has their safe distance. Like, this closeness feels really good to me. I like it here. I don't like it really far off this way. Or, ooh, we're too close. You're too close. Like, I need some breathing room. And we start fights to get us back out to our level of closeness that feels safe. But with that differentiation word, the big idea is that we're all standing on our own 2 feet. We're not glomming on to one another. We're not leaning in. So like if I take one person away, we both fall, which can feel really good because I know you're there. Right? I know you're pressing back on me, and we're in this together, and neither one of us wants to fail. Not exactly healthy as I'm standing on my own. I have my own stuff. I recognize you have your own stuff, and I'm here to support you if you need it. That's what we want couples to be.
Yeah, beautiful. Beautifully said. So the thing that comes up for me is like, well, how do I know if I am differentiated? Right? How do I know if I'm like really in my own stuff, like I'm taking responsibility for my stuff? And if I realize that I'm in either the happy weight or the like leaning in and, oh my God, we can't change anything because we might both fall, right? How do I come into my full self?
Good question. So one of my favorite examples is like, if somebody hurt my lover, right? Whatever they did. I'm not saying like ran them over with a car, but like emotionally hurt them, right? So let's say my lover's mom did something to him and he was so upset, right? I'm not about to hop on the phone with his mama to have words with her. That is not my role, right? At all. But undifferentiated people who have that same ego mass, it feels like they were also hurt. Like, no, you hurt him, you hurt me, and now we're all fighting. It's not your role. You're going to trust your lover to say, I was hurt. This is the person who hurt me. And ask you for what they need. I just need you to listen. I need you to validate. You know what? I'm uncomfortable having this conversation. Could you have that conversation? Those look totally different. But when you're not differentiated, when you're all just feeling the same way, then that's a problem. Think of it as newborns. So when newborns see their parents upset, they're also upset because they haven't realized that they're their own tiny humans that have their own emotions and functions. This is why when kids fall, parents be like, oh, no, it's okay. You're fine. You can get up. Right? And they're like, oh, I am fine. I can get up.
Right.
But as they get older, teenagers, they start to have their own feelings and they're able to differentiate like, no, actually, I don't feel bad about this, Mom. Like, why do you feel bad about it? I'm good. And that's what we want to look at for differentiation with lovers. It's these are your feelings. I don't feel that way. I can be empathetic with you. I know what that feeling is like. I know it can be hard. And I don't need to fix this for you. You are capable. I trust you to do what's best for you. And I'm here to support you doing what's best for you. Yeah. I think everybody should enjoy the happy weight phase, okay? Like, be totally in love, be in happy weight. Now, if that's 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks, when that bubble pops a little bit, get back to yourself, but enjoy it. Life doesn't have enough pleasure unless we make it. So enjoy the happy weight phase and just be fine with it. And then figure out like, oh, you know what? This has been really great getting to know you this way. My actual life looks like this, 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 and this. And then you establish those boundaries.
Sure. And if you're a couple and you're living with someone right now, you're probably redoing the happy weight phase because of COVID, right? Like we can't go anywhere. So we're going to Netflix and pizza over and over and over again. Right. Until like, that just becomes something that we can't do anymore. I know I hit my limit. I don't live with a partner, but I hit my own limit with myself doing that. And I was like, wow, I need to do something different, So I know, I know that phase, that we go in. It's so beautifully said about how to, find the space. I know that one of the hardest things that I've experienced in coupleship, especially living with someone, is how easy it is to get into the emotional swirl of their emotional response, right? You're upset and angry. I want to help. And all of a sudden, like, I'm caught in your stuff and now I can't like pull out. I can't pull out. So let's talk about sex now, right? So how do we, if we find ourselves in that moment, right, it can be really difficult to come back to the kind of intimacy where we're both adults, we're both fully in our own power, and we're able to show up fully with each other to be lovers, right? Rather than like one person being in kind of a hurt space and the other person being like, oh, I'm gonna like fix it. I'm gonna take care of you. Or, there's beautiful elements of being in relationship where we are able to take that kind of space, right? But in the place where we want to move into sexuality and eroticism together, it's really difficult to, in my experience, to maintain that kind of being in the swirl with someone rather than being like, I know what I want and I'm here, right? So how do you help couples understand how to do that?
So this is a new favorite phrase that I think is becoming of mine, the difference between a truth and honesty.
Yes.
Right?
Let's go for it.
So I can tell you the truth. My feelings were hurt. I was really angry. I really didn't like that you dismissed me when you were taking out the trash, right? That can be a truth, sure. The honest thing is, I felt really insignificant. I felt stupid. I felt triggered. I felt like I couldn't do anything right and I was being judged. And it was all around taking out trash, and it felt so small that I couldn't bring it to you because then you would see that I was vulnerable and insecure and you wouldn't want me. That's honesty. Right? So
and
there are
that's
truths.
So much more intimate.
And
it's
there's
so
honesty.
Much,
exactly.
Yeah, it's so much more intimate in that honesty. Like even just you role playing that, like I can feel myself just like, have so much care and so much appreciation for you to be able to even to say what's true, what's honest, what's deeper than just the surface stuff
right.
that I could
honesty
probably
focus
see.
On us. Truth is like, if people argue over truth all the time, right? People are like, there's your truth, there's my truth, whatever. That's context. It's not usually helpful for arguments and conflict because everybody remembers everything a little bit differently. What's actually helpful is that vulnerability and that intimacy. And so how I describe intimacy is being able to take risks in sharing and knowing that there will be support there. You're trusting that there will still be that support there. And some people test this, right? Because we've seen those invisible tests that people do. It's like, well, I'm gonna see what they do to see if they really love me. Stop doing that. It's not useful. Right? And a person's just failing tests left and right and not understanding why you're in Grumpyville. So stop doing that. And instead, start to take the risk on being vulnerable. And people have been hurt. The stories I hear in my office and seeing people go into puddles on the floor is one, my honor, and two, always hard. And then you start to get a better radar of how do I trust this person? And if you've already decided to be committed to this lover, when you become 40, 50, 60 years into the game with this lover, are you going to reflect back and say, like, I've been able to be honest, I've been able to show them, and I've been able to be loved completely with that? because that is the goal. The goal is not to have bitterness, not to have pettiness, not to have regrets from how you taught somebody to love you, because that's what we're doing. So I know for me, my own negative self-thought that I have is that I'm stupid. It's a thing. I know it's not true, but when ish comes up and I feel stupid, I get really defensive. I shut down. My lover, like, and we have a distance between us. And my lover and I are an anomaly. Like, we don't really argue. We are still very playful. We're like 8-9 years in the game, whatever. I don't know. But he remembers the anniversaries. That's his job, not mine. So
we all have jobs.
Right. When I feel stupid though, and like he'll say something and like it'll hit me. And I'm like, ooh, I'm in my stuff. And for him, it's just something easy. Our only argument, we've had two. So one of them was over a vacuum. It sounds stupid, right? It sounds like, why are you arguing over a vacuum? And he came to me and I was going to vacuum with this sharp vac. And he was like, you need to wear headphones. And not the cute like music headphones, but like noise canceling headphones. And I'm looking at him like, I've been vacuuming for 30 years. Why do I need I ain't never worn headphones for a vacuum. Why am I wearing what? This makes no sense. And he was like, no, wear the headphones. I'm like, no, I'm good, and I'm going to vacuum. So move your feet, please. And he looked at me and he put his hands on his hips and he took a deep sigh. And my lover is not as emotive as I am. And I was just like, oh, he's bothered. Now I feel dumb. What is going on? What did I miss? Now I'm feeling insecure. Okay. And so he walked out the room, and I'm a Black Southern woman. You're not walking out the room on me. It's not happening. This conversation's not over. Bring that ass here. Right. So I was like, what happened? And he explained to me this vacuum like works at higher decibels and can help like hurt your hearing over time, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh. So I felt really stupid because I didn't understand the frustration that was happening. You explaining that is really helpful. In the future, if you have that extra information, I'd really appreciate it because it helps me get a full picture. And so this was years ago, maybe like 4 or 5 years ago. And then 2 weeks ago, I was using the same like heavy duty vacuum and I had on my ear protection and I turned it off when he came in the room. He was like, thank you for taking care of your ears. I really appreciate that. And I was like, do you want to go half on a baby, sir? That was so sweet. I appreciate that, right? But I was honest in that moment. So that built our intimacy and it's lasted, right? So he still realized like I felt listened to and she heard me and she takes my words seriously. And for him, that's something he really values and being able to impart knowledge. And for me, like I value my hearing. I make my living with my hearing in this way. And I don't necessarily feel ignorant anymore around this situation. So it helps reassure me that I'm being taken care of. And that's just a simple example of what it's like to be honest.
And such a great example of the ways in which when we have some kind of trust or intimacy with someone, we can shortcut our communication and not communicate fully. And so therefore, when we don't, then our partner or even our good friend or parent even can be like, what are you talking about? Right. And great example also of just how like, when we do shortcut, it's super easy for us to take it personally and be like, oh, there must be something wrong with me if I didn't understand what just happened. Right.
Exactly.
I mean, and so you're really saying like this work of differentiation, this work of being responsible for my own emotions and my own internal process is a lifelong responsibility. It's a lifelong journey. Absolutely. And that it is paramount in any kind of relationship in order for us to continue that closeness, that continue that trust. I can say something like you said and trust that you're gonna hear me and that we're gonna be able to move forward together. And it's just so beautiful. So with the people who are coming to you and they're like, okay, now I really want to work on my sex life. where are you starting with them? If somebody comes to you and they say, you know, you're the therapist, you're the sex doc, right? Someone comes to you and they're like, it's okay, but we want to make it better. Where do you start?
I'm going through this right now to be a person who practices what they preach. And I just issued a small, like, I understand how hard it is. I take sex off the table. So my first session with couples, I take sex off the table for 2 weeks. And my lover and I are practicing this right now to talk about like building up anticipation and how fun it can be, and also relieving of pressure, especially if one person's been being rejected and the other person has like, you know, some resentment that they're building up or some pressure feeling like they always have to say yes or no.
Mm-hmm.
It relinquishes that. So I take sex off the table, and it is hard. It has been 2 weeks over here, and we have our first staycation on this weekend coming up. It's our first time ever away from our children at the same time. We're both away. And I'm just like, I ask people to do this all the time. And I believe it's helpful. And it is so frustrating because like we're not even in conflict. I'm like, stop walking around with your shirt off, right? And my partner's playful that way. Like he'll come up and like kiss me. I'm like, you know what? Fine, right? But that's part of the play that we get to get back that we might not have. And the sensitivities you have to each other and your nerve endings now get to stand on end. So I take sex off the table. That's 1. 2, I do a sexual history interview with every single person I ever do therapy with. It is our second session. It is a consent-based interview. And I ask them, and if it's okay, I ask them if they have the right to pass, like when they want to use the right to pass, they absolutely have that. I also ask about anything that's uncomfortable for them versus like, what traumas do you have? And have you ever experienced, like, I'm not doing that. Because people list trauma in various types of ways, and I want to be able to give space for that. So I ask them, and when I have couples or polycules, I do that separately. So I make sure that this person has this time and this person has this time, and that way they're able to be completely transparent of like, I don't really like my partner's breath, like it'd be funky, and I don't want to kiss that, right? Or my partner's not as much of a sex kitten as I like, and so I really want somebody to be a sex kitten, and their riding skills are trash, and I'm like, okay. What I am finding though, what I have found over the past 10 years is most times lovers say, because I asked them about one of their most pleasurable times sexually, they have the same times with each other. They'll say the sex I'm having now is the most pleasurable time, or when we first got together has been the most pleasurable time. And I'm really enjoying that. Most of them usually say they would like to have sex more often than what they're currently having now, and are oftentimes shocked when they hear that their partner says that. They're like, what? You want sex more too? Oh, okay, we can do that, right? And then the third thing I do is typically dismantle myths around how we build up sex. So
go into that. What is at least 1 or 2 myths?
Oh my gosh. So people think that this is not my sport. Sex is like a baseball diamond. And I'm a millennial, okay? So the baseball diamond has changed since even I was in the baseball diamond. So like first base was kissing, right?
I don't know.
And then
I never understood the bases myself.
Second base is like maybe a body feel or up under the clothes. Then somehow third base jumps to like oral sex. I don't know how third base jumps to like oral sex nowadays. I think it used to be like a finger bang back in my day. But now it's like oral sex. And then home base would be penetrative sex of whatever type, right? So it's bumping uglies, genitals to genitals, however they fit together. And then a home run, grand slam, whatever the big thing is an orgasm, right? So that's the cherry on top, icing on cake, whatever. So if somebody is watching baseball and they hit that grand slam and they run to third base first, the crowd is going to be like, what are you doing? It's not the right way to do this.
Yeah.
What? And people think sex is that way too. It always has to have this progression of kissing, then fingering and fondling, and then oral sex, and then whatever the position is. And then if it ends in orgasm, great. If it doesn't, bum, 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 right? And that's not necessarily how sex is to go. So I have a worksheet that I use that actually like people can get for free from me. It's called a pleasure wheel. right? And so that pleasure wheel kind of looks like a pizza, which is Al Vernacchio's way of saying that sex is like pizza. It's a wheel. There's a bunch of different things that go in it, right? Cuddling, toe sucking, oral sex, anal sex, group sex. I don't really care.
More
Bondage,
cheese,
you
more
name it.
cheese.
Right.
Yeah.
All the stuff
Yeah.
can go in this wheel, and you can hop around to what you want. So who says that sex ends with orgasm? Maybe the orgasm happens first, and then you go and make out, and you go and do other stuff. Maybe you start and stop. So maybe you get really aroused that morning, and you're like, nope, you have to hold this orgasm until the end of the day. And you get consent, like, hey, I'm really thinking about you, and I wanted to send you this sexy picture. Is that okay? Right? And they say, sure. And you're revving engines all throughout the day. So when you come back together, it's like, boom, it's time to like capitalize on all this dirty stuff you've been talking to me about all day. Right?
Yeah. I'm going to, from over here on the couch, I'm going to text you this, even though I know you're in the kitchen. But
exactly, from a separate room when they're on a work call. Like, I read a bad joke about like somebody getting hit in the face with a penis or something, because that was like a couple's joke they do. Don't do that when people are on Zoom meetings. And also, like, wear pants. We can see you. And don't masturbate on Zoom meetings. Like, we know. But outside of that, unless it's a masturbation call Zoom meeting, but like outside of that, you can be in the kitchen or the bedroom and you're taking your separate meetings, and like, I love it when you put on your boss voice, like, this is who you are at work. That's so hot. And you can share that, and you can build that playfulness, or like, hey, we're going to have a lunch break. Let's do something then, and carve out that time. So sex isn't necessarily the stepwise progression that only goes one way. You can go up and down and around and pause and stop. And all of that is sexual play. It's no longer just defined by whatever part inserts into another part and ends in one person's typical orgasm. Like, just because there's not a hard penis involved doesn't mean that it's not sexual. And every
I love that
erection doesn't have to be used.
Absolutely. And I love that, you know, we're hopefully more as a society, we are moving away from the sports metaphor, because inherent in that is there's a winner and there's a loser, right? And so, you know, someone having to compromise in order for someone else to win, right? Like, oh, I got to do this. I got to take one for the team, even though I don't really want to, right? Like, there's, you know, a lot of women that I've worked with over the years, like, that has been part of their story, right? Like, I have to do this because, you know, more myths, like his sex drive is higher, or he needs it more than I do, or this is what I'm supposed to do because he makes more money than I do, or this is just how it is, right? Like, some version of, I have to endure this thing that I really don't want to, right? So I love that we're, you know, I hope, fingers crossed, let's do it. Let's do it together. Like, you know, moving forward with this pleasure wheel and this idea that, like, you know, if we're ordering pizza, we're trying to figure out what are the toppings that you like and that I like and that we can share. And actually, like, we can still get a halves and halves and still enjoy together, right? So we don't have to be locked into this, you know, like the relationship escalator, something that there are these prescribed steps that you have to do. And if you don't do them, somehow you're doing it wrong. Right. So I love that you're offering this pleasure wheel. It's so valuable.
And then, so just with the pleasure wheel, I love for couples to do them separately. They fill them out by themselves, but then they come together, and then you can make a mega, I call it a wheel of fortune, no trademark, pleasure wheel. Right? Because then you combine like all of the things, and you can say, like, this is a yes, this is a no, and this is a maybe. Like, we might need more information on how to try this. And you get to figure out all of the stuff that you all get to do that you're like, huh, I'm into that. That looks like fun.
Beautiful. I think one of the other one of the themes that you're really talking about that I want to name, that I'm hearing, is how important it is that each one of us as an individual is really responsible for our individual desires, our triggers, our trauma, our shame, our stories, and really our desire. Like, what is it that we really want, knowing that we have this past that we're connected to, right? What do I want for myself for the future? And that we have to be doing that work for ourselves in order to really be good partners, right? To be good, responsible partners. But that's really the way that it works, right? And I think that there's so much, idea that, like, if if we're having a challenge in a coupleship, in a partnership, that we have to do couples work together, and that we have to do it together, and it's always together, and we always have to work it out together, rather than,
Right.
like you said, like you as a practitioner, like you are going to work with someone one-on-one for at least this conversation, because there are things that as a partner I want to talk about with somebody else who's not my partner, about my partner, and I really don't want them to hear it, and I really just need to say it, and need somebody to say that they hear me and they understand me, and
Yeah.
and then to know that, right, without having to bring it up, so that then we can like figure out how to move with it, right? And that I think is just so valuable. Just the reminder that one of the pathways to intimacy is you got to do your work, and you got to come to the table with somebody else who's doing their work as well.
Right, right. Absolutely. I say it all the time. People always say, well, relationships are 50-50 and give and take. And I'm like, bullshit. No, I need you to come as close to 100% and 100%. You were whole people. You were people who existed before this relationship. You will be people who grow during this relationship. And if there's an after this relationship, you're going to have to continue on. So you come and, you're not going to be 100 every day. Maybe you're going to be a 75 today. Either way, you're not coming as half, and you don't come needing to be fulfilled. You come saying, this is how I get fulfilled. Would you like to participate in it with me? Oh, no? Okay. Well, then maybe I'm not your cup of tea. Oh my gosh, I love the way you help me fulfill myself. I love the way you help me generate. That feels so good. I love to do this with you. And that's where we go. When you said endure, like I had tingly things that come up my spine, because that is exactly how it's described. It's something that people are just like an obligation, and their pleasure gets so sideswept as lovers, as wives, as mothers, as daughters, as caretakers, as workers. And I staunchly believe that self-sacrifice does not equal goodness. It's something we're not taught as women. We're not socialized to believe, but we decide like, oh, if I just like let them have sex with my body, and I'm thinking about the laundry list and this other book that I want to read and the other things that I need to do once this is, are you done? Okay, like almost. If I squeeze here, cough here, like they'll finish and we can go on about our days. But it does such a disservice to your own pleasure. And it's a great way to build bitterness and resentment with your partner. And I've seen this specifically with people who have sexual pain. They just like bear down and try and go through it. And it comes back, and they're looking at their lover like, how come you didn't realize I was in pain? And how come your sexual gratification was more important than my pain? And now I'm afraid to have pain, even though like I've worked it out. I know what the medical thing is. I know what the trauma is. I don't necessarily want to have sex with you because it seemed like you were enjoying this pain that I was in when I was just so trying to hold on, and your gratification was more important, right? Because we're enduring. You don't have to endure, because your self-sacrifice does not make you a better lover. It does not make you a better wife. It does not make you a better mother or a better worker or a better daughter or community person or church person. It shrinks you. It diminishes you into just this little role. And you're always so much more than that. You get to be so much more than that. And you get to define it for yourself. So if you're going to be a kinkster, go out and be a kinkster. If you're going to be somebody who's like, I really like missionary sex and this is the way I prefer it, do that and enjoy it. And if it's not enjoyable, if it's not producing pleasure, you have every right to stop. You have every right not to do it. And to talk about like, I need to figure out how I get pleasure out of this too. Every right.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Lexx. It was really a wonderful, chance to connect with you, and a joy to hear from you. And I just really love what you're bringing. To all of our viewers, please come back tomorrow for another expert conversation and exploration of sexual satisfaction and all of the things that impact us, so that we can make it happen for ourselves. Thank you, everyone.